Hi, Neil from Zempire Camping here, and today I'd like to help you solve the age-old camping question of, is my tent leaking or is that condensation? From experience, have you ever looked inside your tent and seen a film of water on the inside of the tent fabric, or witnessed even drips coming down and wondered, is my tent leaking? Well, in this video, I'd like to discuss the difference between a leak in your tent and condensation, and also how you can mitigate both factors to have a more comfortable camping experience. Let's start with a leak. Now, these are generally quite easy to determine, as a leak will come from a singular and visible point, or multiple points, but it'll be very visible and easy to determine. Now, this can happen from anywhere where there's a hole or a tear in your fabric, or could potentially be where two pieces of fabric are stitched together at the seam and it isn't sealed correctly. Now, in both these situations, it's going to require a repair to mitigate this. So if it's a tear, then potentially, depending on the size and the location, you can get a repair patch. If it's at the seam, then there's seam sealing tape that you can use, both of which you should take advice before using. Now, all fly fabrics have a hydrostatic head rating. And what that means is it's a water pressure rating of how much water a fabric can withstand before one droplet passes through to the other side. Now, if a tent is pitched correctly and the water cannot pool in a given area for a long period of time, 1000 mils hydrostatic head rating should be adequate to be called waterproof. For example, this tent that I'm in here has a 6000 mil water head rating. Now, these do degrade over time with physical and UV damage, but it's unlikely that the fabric will be the cause of your leak. Moving on to condensation. This is something we're taught back in physics class at school, and it relates to a substance when it turns from a gas or vapor back to a liquid, which happens when the temperature of the vapor or gas decreases. It's worth noting at this point that warm or hot air can hold twice as much liquid as cold air. Now, when we're camping, we create this protective shelter to keep the elements out, like the wind, the rain, and the sun. But what that does is it has the opposite effect as well, of trapping warm, humid air in. Now, humidity can be raised by a number of different things, like the ground. There's a lot of moisture in the ground which can come up. There's plants, there's pets, there's cooking food, there's people, just as an example. Now, during the day, this causes few, if any, problems. The tent is open and the air is free to move and escape back into the atmosphere. Then the nighttime comes, the temperature drops, and we close up our tent. By doing this, we trap in any residual warm air, and we take ourselves inside as well. Now, at this point, it's also worth noting, on top of all the reasons for raising moisture that I mentioned earlier, humans also expel approximately 2 liters of water per day through their breath alone. So, if you have an 8-hour sleep, you are expelling approximately 700 mils of water into your tent atmosphere. Now, ways to mitigate condensation are difficult. As it's a natural process, it can rarely be avoided. However, to mitigate it, you can do the following. Firstly, ventilate. Keep all your vents open, windows and doors, to allow the air to flow. Pitch your tent on flat ground. Do this so that you can be sure that the tent is the right shape to allow water to flow off your tent. Thirdly, using sleeping pods. Now, these sleeping pods actually can absorb some of the warm, humid air, and they reduce the amount of condensation which can touch the fly fabric. The moisture from the ground commonly rises up in the evening or throughout the day and gets trapped within your tent and forms condensation overnight. In summary, condensation is a perfectly natural process that, by taking precautions and understanding how it happens, you can mitigate and have a much more comfortable camping experience. That's all from us here at Zempire Camping today. Thanks for taking time to watch this, and please reach out to us on our social channels.